Good afternoon, gamers, and welcome to another exciting episode of Games with Dave. I'm getting my little script here all screwed up. Today, I am joined by a man who should need no introduction in the mothership world, Cameron Strittmatter from the Panic Table, the YouTube channel where they produce killer live plays. And Cameron has also been doing some really kick-ass interviews lately. Bark After Dark, which have been super informative for anybody looking to get into Mothership Month and get on those awesome things. But the reason we're here is to talk about the awesomeness that Cameron and Jack Panic have put together for a project for Mothership Month, Dog Eat Dog, which is a prison break adventure for Mothership that funded in under 2 hours. There's a link in the description to back it. Get on it. And let's stretch our legs and get ready to run from some four-legged, not so friendos, maybe. And how are you, Cameron? I'm so excited to have you on.
I am just Ducky, thrilled to be invited. It's great to meet you, Dave, and be here on the show. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Thanks for coming on. It's got to be kind of, I don't know for you. I've been interviewed on a couple of shows, and I feel so out of place being interviewed, where I primarily interview people. It's weird. I don't know if that's the same for you, like being interviewed in this
Oh,
instance.
sure. Yeah, I think if you don't have like light imposter syndrome going into this sort of stuff, you're doing it wrong. So that's
Yeah.
that's just built in, totally.
Yep. I mean, first
Yeah,
and foremost, congrats on funding in under 2 hours. I mean, how elated were you and
bananas.
Jack?
Yeah, it's been crazy on Mothership Month. I mean, this is how we start all of our Bark After Dark interviews, which are just conversations with the other folks on Mothership Month. But we all knew it would be great. We didn't know it would be. I mean, as a point of reference, we had a backer kit earlier this year, and we made roughly what we're at now over the course of 26 days, and we hit this number in maybe 36 hours. So it's quite a stark difference right out
That's
the gate. So
bonkers.
thank you. We're thrilled. Yeah.
That is just bonkers. The first question I ask almost everyone is what got you into RPGs?
Oh, sure.
And then what was the transition from player to what you're doing now with the Panic Table?
Man, okay, great question. I played an RPG for the first time in high school and it didn't stick. I didn't really get it, and it was much more of like an Xbox phase of life for all of us in our teenage years. Uh, I have other answers for this on other interviews, but I'm going to give you an inside scoop. What drew me back to RPGs was the video game Dragon Age, actually. Like
Nice.
that started the itch. I remember specifically playing. I trust you're familiar with that game. it's
Yes.
it's it's a class. Yeah, amazing. The DLC where you could play this just over the top loquacious golem named Shale. I was like, man, I would love to pretend to be this all the time. And so like I like hooked up with some friends who were in the middle of a D&D campaign and sort of slipped into that and had the time of my life. So that is the actual true answer, and I must have been pre-college, right in the middle of college for that. And then, like so many of us, just the normal answer that faded away. And in 2020, the world changed, and we all looked for something to do. And I was sitting by day. I run a video production company called Failure Island in Brooklyn with my partner and my wife, who are separate people, but often those lines blur. And we were in between making some like web commercials for some software, and I had recently become addicted to Dimension 20 and thought to myself, how hard could this be? And Dave, it's really hard, but it's so fun and it's been
It
completely
is.
rewarding. So yeah.
Now, it's funny that you say how hard it is because it is hard doing this stuff. And I mean, I'm just in my living room, and your guys' productions are like gaming table, stage, lights, and all that. And it's like,
Sure.
I can't even imagine how the oh, sugar, what is the word I'm trying to think of here? The how overwhelming that is in contrast to just doing interviews.
It is, and like as a point of reference, I know I don't know, I can't speak with authority on like the Critical Role size crew, but I know at over at Dropout they've got somewhere between 20 and 30 people on set at any given time, depending on, like, I don't know what it was at the height of COVID, but yeah, it's just a very traditional like live set. There's lots of people doing things, and here at Failure Island, the company that's behind the Panic Table, there's 6 of us. So we made season 1 where just people had hats stacked on hats as we were doing things, and so it's yeah, it's because we're not sponsored, because we're not backed by anybody yet. So if you're listening, the internet, hey, we sure would love to hawk your products on things. But yeah, it's just been truly a labor of love to make what we have so far, and yeah, what I think is just a love letter to the genre. So, but yeah, it is. It. I would not be able to do it without the whole team behind us. Like, gosh, I mean, while I'm here, just shout out. Recently, our art director Natalie Lay won an award at the New Jersey Web Fest for best set design slash miniatures. Although we
Nice.
don't use miniatures, we just got yeah, and she absolutely crushed it on our show, Unaccompanied Minors. So, but I mean, it's so yeah, I can't take credit for any of that because it's just you know, without those people, it would have been me in my living room doing this. I think that's what I originally proposed, and my partner Jacob said, absolutely not. Like, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it big. So,
Well, congratulations to Natalie. That's awesome. And
yeah.
I think that answers one of my questions. I was going to ask who does your thumbnails because they are just mwah, chef's
Oh,
kiss.
that's me actually.
That's you. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations. Those things,
No,
your
Natalie
thumbnails
did
are
the
awesome.
the much easier thing of designing and building an entire spaceship set. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I
your
had the heavy
thumbnails are
lifting of
awesome.
designing thumbnails. So thank you for that. Yeah.
So, for those that are unfamiliar with both Mothership Month and Mothership, I guess you would say, or at least we'll say Dog Eat Dog, could you
Sure.
give them a rundown on what Mothership Month is and how it came to be and how you got involved?
Absolutely, yeah. So Mothership, in this guy's opinion, is one of the single most electrifying sci-fi horror tabletop RPGs ever made. It's just fantastic. I've already used the analogy of a love letter to things, but Mothership was designed. It's sprinting where games like Traveler had to walk first in order
Yeah.
for things like this to exist. It has that throwback OSR feeling, but is now in this sort of new school of open-ended rules light games that I just saw it blowing up in zero edition in the 2020s, you just on
Yeah.
Reddit and being passed around on napkins. People were like, you gotta try this game. And yeah, I was just so enamored by it. Shout out to the blog, Quadra Zones blog. I think it's like trash TRAAA.sh. But that's what got me into it. Just reading Quadra's after action reports, I was like, "There's no way this game is this cool," and it turns out it was, and it's come so far since then. So Mothership recently shipped in. It made history, I think, on Kickstarter at the time. It made like something like $1.6 million in crowdfunding when it had come out, and then it happened to try and fulfill during the global shipping crisis. So that was fun, but it made it to shelves finally about May this year for
And
everybody.
it made it to homes.
it's it's so beautiful, and so we were, what the one thing we knew that we didn't want to try to do is that the market of entertainment for actual plays and game programming deeply saturated with Dungeons and Dragons stuff. Like, I don't particularly like, there's so many incredible games out there that I'm out of time for D&D 5e personally. Like if someone wanted to play it, sure, fine, totally. But I'm never gonna pick that first because I've run in that circle. I get it. It's fine. It's a solid game, and there's just so much wealth to be explored out there, especially bangers like Mothership. And so, yeah, we just looking at the success of the game on Kickstarter, looking at the incredible community on Discord, who have been just absolutely amazing. I think sometimes OSR communities can be, and like, not that Mothership Mothership is strictly OSR, but needlessly. Like, there's this idea of like gatekeeping around nebbish, neckbeardy type.
Yeah.
I'm in my mother's basement playing, with my D20s, but open and friendly and accommodating. And it doesn't matter, like, if you post the jankiest napkin scribble or the most incredible, people are doing like cinema level stuff behind the scenes for Mothership with like, hey, I just rigged this up for my table, and it'll be a full blown like 3D schematic of a spaceship that some NASA engineer put together, and everything in between. And no matter what you post, you're gonna get a pile of hell yeahs from just everybody in there. And so I was like, I think these are our people, and so far that's been tremendously rewarding. So huge shout out to Mothership. Sean McCoy has been just great, creator of Mothership, and his partner Alan Girding. So in general, we were like, I think these are our people. We finally found a similar folk waving a similar freak flag. So
Nice. It
yeah,
is a fantastic community. And I primarily will do interviews with folks in the indie game world
yeah,
because I have found a lot of the communities are that have that same mentality of a rising tide lifts all ships.
hmm,
And it's so great to see, whereas, like you were kind of saying, it's not necessarily just 5e, but
right.
there is some gatekeeping in the community. And with so many great communities out there, you can just kind of be like, meh, to the
Who
ones
needs
that
it?
do that. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's like I don't need to be dealing with that. I don't need to be like feeling like I'm judged every time I
right.
post something, where I can go elsewhere and people will be
Cough,
like,
cough.
dude, you
R
should.
slash RPG. Yeah, but those guys, dang. Like, if you sneeze in the
uh,
wrong direction, they'll crucify you. Yeah, I'm coming for you. So
that's right.
back to you. Yeah.
No, no. um, so to get to Dog Eat Dog, I can't wait for this. I love the patch that you have, the limited
Oh, thanks.
edition
Yeah.
patch that you get. And what is the basic gist of Dog Eat Dog? My usual thing is to say, make your elevator pitch, but I don't want to use your own line against you. And, but
Oh,
if,
and yeah, I didn't explain what Mothership Month was,
oh,
which
yeah.
I promise Mothership isn't paying me to do this. I'm just a huge fan. They After the successful shipping of their first edition, they've now heralded in their next piece of the pie. This thing they're called Wages of Sin is the new official book that Tuesday Night Games is publishing by the incredible Luke Gearing, and to like ride the coattails of that, they decided to do a back arcade group extravaganza and reached out to a bunch of creators to join in with crime themed supplements for Mothership, which just has this robust third party publishing ring around it. Just countless amazing things. It's a very healthy ecosystem, like any RPG should have, of just people extrapolating and making crazy stuff in every direction around it. So part of that is Dog Eat Dog, which is something that we cooked up. And Dave, I got to tell you, we didn't actually intend on publishing a book at first. We knew Mothership Month was coming, a month-long period on BackerKit, and we were like, gosh, it would be almost strange if the Panic Table didn't show up, since we're at the moment so closely aligned with Mothership. I think we will be branching out to try lots of indie horror systems specifically, and then beyond. But for right now, we're that Mothership show, and so I was already knee deep in developing the series, which we, I think, in genuine earnesty, thought we'd be able to deliver week by week during Mothership Month. As a point of reference, our first season, Unaccompanied Minors, took like 4 months of pre-production, 1 week of intense shooting, and then almost 6 months of editing to get all 10 hour-and-a-half long episodes out.
Wow.
So I don't know what made me think a month and a half ago that I'd have all 4 episodes ready by right now, but it must have been a head injury. So as you know, with like maybe a week ago, we dropped the trailer, maybe a little less than that even. I think it was like last Wednesday, something like that. But
Yeah, I thought it
uh,
was over. Was it over the weekend? I don't know.
uh,
I may have just caught it
that's when
over
it
the weekend.
slithered out into the world. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ah,
Um, but yes, so we are making a show, and Sean McCoy said, "Hey, if you've already done all the writing, just codify it, make a book." And so I reached back out to my design partner, Jack Panic, who is indefatigable, invincible, impossible. What an incredible person that I had teamed up with earlier in the year for our first backer kit project. And said, "Hey, you want to do this?" And we had one of those like meme arm clasps and got to work because we got that backer kit up and running in like 3 weeks. I was reading a best practices manual on how to do crowdfunding, and they're like, make sure you have like a solid like 6 to 8 months of prep time as you like ease into publishing a book on the internet. And we're like, cool, let's do it in a weekend. And that has been coconuts, Dave. Dog Eat Dog is a campaign setting. So it's a piece of our world, the lore of our first season of the Panic Table in a show called Unaccompanied Minors. It plays in that cosmos, which has a whole. I could literally talk about this the entire session, so I won't nerd out and
Go
bore
for
dump.
it. I'll let you. I'll
But
let you.
yeah, Dog Eat Dog takes place in that cosmology and under those rules, but on planet Earth. So 200 years after a big accident has happened, where only the ultra wealthy and the ultra poor live, and Dog Eat Dog specifically takes place after the moon has exploded. So there's a lot of like climate problems, and our adventure is in the Vermont archipelago,
All right.
all that's left of that part of the country, and where old money in the form of Redfern Kennel Club has been. It's a beautiful old estate on a sea cliff that has become, as of late, a profitable penitentiary and rehabilitation ranch for prisoners. But it started as a kennel club and hunting lodge, and so. The premise is that Dog Eat Dog, Red Fern, specifically within Dog Eat Dog, is a place that in the future true dogs are extinct. And in the vastness of space, this is reflected in the Mothership rules. Animals are very expensive, real animals, because they only come from one place. Like
Right.
there's, in the far reaches of space, living, breathing creatures are a tremendous luxury and notoriously difficult to keep alive on a spaceship. And so, yeah, in the midst of all that, Red Fern purports to have figured out, sort of Jurassic Park style, how to resurrect dogs using other elements at their disposal here on planet Earth. And yeah, so that's their primary export. And for reason X, they are also in canine rehabilitation of prisoners. And more interesting than all of that is that it works. Prisoners often have shorter paroles here. It's a very European sort of open air prison. There aren't any guards, just lots of really imposing dog like creatures. And yeah, everything would be hunky dory, except that every now and then prisoners tend to go missing. So it is a campaign setting. It is a great place to pick up where Wages of Sin, any of the adventures you have in Mothership, especially and inevitably as you play a crew full of ne'er-do-wells in space. Uh, Eventually, if you're gonna get collared by the Corpo dogs or blackmailed by bounty hunters, but yeah, you're gonna wind up incarcerated, and this is a great place to serve out your sentence in a very unusual way.
I cannot wait to get my hands on this because it sounds so fun. I've got so much imagery in my head of dog things. And speaking of the terrors, you have ripped through stretch goals like a pupper would rip through a bag of kibble.
I
And
see
there's
what
a
you did there.
really special, yeah, see, there's a really special stretch goal coming up when this campaign hits 25,000, which is just under $1,200, just over $1,200 away. Can you tell folks what that is?
It's so close I can smell it, Dave. I'm so excited because yeah, at Red Fern, obviously there are dog likes and there is which they call the things that are mostly basically dogs, but not quite. And there are ranges of failure in how those dogs are expressed, and some of them aren't man's best friend at all. And so we already promised to have 10 separate horrors available, not all of which are just dogs. There are other things to encounter in prison and the surrounding areas that are quite ominous at Redfern Kennel Club. But once we hit 25K, we're doubling down. We're going to do twice as many horrors. So that means double the dogs and a few other surprises built in. So we'll have a really rich compendium of just terrifying things to throw at your players over the course of the game. So I'm very excited about that.
Excellent. That sounds
Yeah.
so much fun. One of the other things that really popped out to me with this is your color palette that you've chosen. The red and the green. and I don't know if this
Mm,
was intentional, but it made me think of like reaching up to the spice shelf with the green, grabbing some Predator, shaking that in the bowl, and then reaching up with the red, shaking a little Alien in there, and
yeah,
mixing it up. And
sure.
am I close or am I just
Oh yeah.
imagining things?
Yeah, I mean, but between like the typeface and stuff, the and the yeah, I'm using red back here, but the true flavor is more of like a dusky orange behind that. And but I mean, you've hit the nail on the head between sort of that like Blade Runner orange into sort of Predator Town all the way
Yeah.
through. Just the James Cameron hit list and um uh yeah, I'm suddenly blanking on who directed Blade Runner. Oh, Ridley
Uh,
Scott. What am I saying?
yes.
Yeah, as well as Alien and all these other things. So yeah, I mean, half the reason we do this is because I'm deeply drawn to just that milieu, to use a $20 word. But yeah, so unmistakably, that vibe is something we wanted to communicate, and I wanted to use colors that I haven't been seeing. Like orange and green. You don't. I usually think of like I'm realizing now as we look through all of like our backer kit page and stuff, I can't unsee the flag of Mexico and or Ireland, but uh, but in the midst of that, yeah, I just wanted to do stuff that was punchy, that stood out from the other like more traditional cyber colors, blues and purples and yellows and that kind of stuff, and really have something that, because even season one of Company Unaccompanied Minors on the Panic Table uses the color we affectionately call blurple and like laser
Yep.
yellow. And so yeah, we wanted to go with something stark and kind of raw, and like you said, very, very Alien meets Predator, somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah, and that's what drew me in. I'm like, this doesn't look like anything else I've seen with that. Like you were saying, like the
Cool.
blues and the yellows and all of that. And I
Yeah.
was just like, and I started to read down through it. I'm like, oh, this sounds fun. And
Great.
I can't, like I said, I'll probably say it 100 more times. I can't wait to like get this at a table or at least in my hands and read it. I don't currently have a mothership crew. I will end up being the warden inevitably. I am the forever DM wherever. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
It is just I've actually gotten to play. I got to play in the Blades in the Dark campaign lately, and I kind of
Fun.
took this spin on Captain Boomerang from Suicide Squad and mashed him up with Negan from The Walking Dead,
Wild.
and he was intense, to say the
Sounds like
least.
it. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've got to get a group together to play Mothership because I love this game.
Word to the wise, the and again, I swear Tuesday Night Games isn't paying me for this. I just love the game, but they recently announced their new VTT through their companion app, which is super super slick. So another great thing about Mothership is that the app is free to download, and you can like roll up a character in literally seconds, which I think is nice. I know there's so much love about building a character in an RPG, but Mothership encourages you to like roll it up and then from the contextual clues you're given, build a character around that, which I think is great, especially when you know you're just there for like maybe 1 to 3 games.
Right.
It's not that it's less important; it's that the what's happening in game is sculpting who you are, not necessarily your tragic backstory, which is cool and important, but takes on new flavor. You know this the second the story kicks in, like you begin to recontextualize as the events unfold. And so they have now added a super super slick VTT to that, so it's even easier to play online. I know there's a lot of other like plugins on Foundry and other stuff like that, but yeah, honestly, the best one I've seen is now the one Mothership did themselves, and I think it's like cheap. It's like $10 or something. So,
Oh, sweet.
Tuesday Night Games, sponsor us. Look at all this legwork I'm doing out here. You
Give this man
guys,
a paycheck. You know?
yeah.
So, where did the idea for Red Fern Kennel Club and Rehabilitation Ranch come from? I mean, I read the name and it kind of painted this picture of Cabo, but this is no Cabo. I can tell I'm
No,
way off with my assessment. It may be, yeah, it's just not Cabo. This is like not where
I
you
don't
want to wind
know
up.
how they do it in Maine, Dave, but in Texas where I was raised, there at the time was like a required middle school reading list, and one of those books traumatized me for life. It was called Where the Red Fern Grows. Do you know this
Dude,
one?
I know that book, and it is the most horribly gut wrenching story in the world because
It's Oh, it destroyed me, man. You know how.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah.
I have
Spoiler,
not
it's
owned a
been 40
dog
years, y'all.
because
They
of that.
kill the dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not owned a dog because of that book. I stick with cats.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So literally, it was on a road trip with my wife and trying to think of something fresh for Mothership Month because we knew we would be participating and cooking up an AP, and we were on our way to a wedding, which is not relevant necessarily to the story. But what is yeah, I was trying to think of something that like absolutely devastated me, but that I hadn't seen represented. Because what Mothership does beautifully is derelict spaceship or forgotten research outpost, and you go inside and oh no, you've released the virus, the alien ghost, the xenomorph, the cyborg creature, like all of
Right.
those things are in there. But I hadn't seen something that really cuts it close to home of losing your animal best friend. Now, to be clear, we do not there are no real dogs in Dog Eat Dog. They are still extinct, and the things you encounter aren't like though they look like dogs, have monstrous varieties. And no, not all of them are adversarial. We have I just know, especially going into the RP community, like harm versus animals is most people's number one thing, as is
Yeah.
mine. And so I wanted to make it like I think any warden who gets this in their hands, like page one, we're abundantly clear about what's going on under the hood for a dog like, and I think that'll be very helpful as guiding their table through wondering if they're hurting good boys or not. But dude, that book, it wrecked me. And so I was like, how do we harness the innate sorrow and loss and passion and even just that youthful romance of having a dog in the woods, and just bonding with something that, yeah, and really make that the heart of the horror we're offering. So we put it on planet Earth. We put it with animals we know well, and kind of steered in the opposite direction that we saw everything else going.
Man, my heart sank when you brought up Where the Red Fern Grows because I
It's a
remember
bummer, Dave.
yeah, I remember sitting there because I wear my emotions on my sleeve. That's just the type of guy I am. And I
Sure.
remember reading that book at home and I'm just like
Yeah.
reading that book and I'm like, why would my teacher make me read this book? What is wrong with you?
Monsters. The real horrors. What were these school districts thinking? You'll find to our module is just jam packed with oblique dog references, mostly to books from that period of time, like what the dog training android whom you can befriend or perhaps betray on the prison premises is named Shiloh.
Oh,
There's just yeah. There's like Milo and Otis references, Homeward Bound references. There's just a lot of dog nonsense in there, which how could we not?
and then Homeward Bound is another one. That's like a pulse racing story. You're like, oh my God, they're trying to cross the river. Are they going to get separated? Or one of them going to drown or something like that? And it's like,
Yeah, the
oh,
goodest boys.
yeah. And, I saw kind of the direction this was going in reading the backer kit description. And
Sure.
that's why I picked Zool as the goodest boy. I was one of those 3% people that chose
I
him.
did too. Yeah. With
um,
Zool, you know who you're dealing with, right? There's no
yeah,
cuddles coming from that guy.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
Like he is just going to eat your face and call it a day.
And
So,
reality. Yeah.
so through Mothership Month, you've been
Yeah.
talking with all the other creators with Bark After Dark. And your interviews, dude, I'm sorry, are on another level. And I asked you this before we went live, but I want to do this more for folks watching now and in the future.
Sure.
What is your background in communications and interviewing and stuff like that? Is it something you just jumped into that came naturally to you, or do you have a background in communication?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the no background in I mean, I went to film school, which I don't think counts. Like, that's a great way of saying I was a bartender right out of college. But and perhaps maybe that's where like yeah, my communications degree was behind a bar. That's absolutely true.
But that
Yeah,
that
I
is a
think
communications degree in itself.
it really is, yeah. Like I think because by no means do I support like the like journalistic integrity of like shout out Roland Zoli over at Rascal. We've become buds up here in Brooklyn, and the work she's doing is actually fantastic from a journalistic standpoint. But man, I just loving having an enthusiastic conversation like we're having here.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, Dave, because if you don't stop me, I won't stop for hours. So thank goodness our show is only like allowed to be 1 hour long. But I feel that cutoff every time it approaches. I just love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk games until I'm blue in the face, and
Hmm.
I actually had one interview with Brian Shutter. He created Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland, and we went almost 7 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And we just kept going and going, and we both kind of like almost in sync looked at the clock, and we're like, good God, it's 1 a.m. And we
Whoa.
didn't even realize it at that point. And he's like, yeah, we should probably go to bed. And I'm like, I think so. And I was like, that really for me was a turning point, because I think it was
Yeah.
before we went live or when we just went live, we were saying the imposter syndrome thing. I'm like, dang, I can actually talk to people, because you were the bartender. I was the guy in the kitchen that would be complaining about you ordering a well done steak while I'm trying to break down my station. So
Right. Totally.
the talking didn't come as naturally for me. Like, I used to carry around this little red Panasonic tape recorder when I was a little kid, and I always wanted to be Wolfman Jack and be a DJ. And now
Cool.
technology has really kind of given me that outlet, which I think is super cool. But we're going to get back to your stuff. This isn't about me.
Okay.
Um,
I'm fascinated. Yeah.
and we can go back to it if you want. Another thing with me, though, is I am a patch fanatic. Like, I've got to
I
get
love
a
a patch.
jacket to put all my Mothership patches on.
Yeah.
And who designed the 4 patches that you have as add-ons? More specifically, the one I mentioned before we went live, the Red
Oh,
Fern
sure.
Rehab Deluxe patch, because to me that just screamed the Nostromo patch in a
Oh, yeah.
way, that with that rainbow on there, and I'm just like, good God, that's like an alternate universe Nostromo patch.
I love that you love it. That was absolutely the shout out to our designer Joel Caswell, who Joel is an unstoppable force of magic in this world. Joel made that in the trailer. If you watch that like amazing title sequence where suddenly like the door slides open and you see like the cage that's made out of the title and the dogs coming up behind
Yep.
it and stuff. Yeah, that's Joel. Joel did our title sequence for Unaccompanied Minors as well. Joel designed the cool twisty panic table intro that happens. I
Nice.
just did the Snowpiercer just then, I just realized. But the Eternal Engine. But Joel, yeah, Joel's a genius. And so I was like, hey man, we've got this thing. It's a prison with dogs. And Joel said, say no more. And popped out of the chat 2 days later with these awesome iterations. Now, the more bland corporate looking ones like Blast X Wilson, that's a Cameron original. I might as well huck my wares while I'm here. We have a bunch of surprises coming out for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I have all these patch designs that haven't seen the world yet from our original series. And so I'm going to be dropping a bunch of in-world throwback flavored stuff that is, again, very Ridley Scott, just across the board in the vibe.
Nice.
But yeah, like you'll be able to find stuff from the Warp Transit Authority and from Lover's Rock, which is the mining colony. But yeah, Joel Caswell did the Red Fern, both the red one and the limited edition one that we're doing just for Backer Kit, that has the rainbow stripes. And I think you pointed out something important too. Like when you're designing peripherals for especially horror games, yeah, there is the heavy metalness of it, but my friend Kevin, who will probably never see this, hi Kevin, uh, is always like, I don't believe X science fiction film because I don't think a person would ever live on that ship, if that makes any sense. Like the Nostromo makes sense because it looks lived in. It looks like a beat to crap space RV, right?
Right.
Like where people, the hallways seem like they, maybe, and so the more like Dead Space has a lot going for it, but I don't believe for a second that somebody was like, this is a perfect place to house a civilization over time. It's horrifying in there.
Yeah.
And so this, I think that's the magic of the patches, and like you're like the bright colors, the rainbow. It's important to like offer a world that where things are going well, because then you have that really fun if you know quality to owning merch from a game where you're like, oh no, that's not a happy patch.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
That's
very
when you
cool.
cut off your buddy's jacket in like memoriam of him as you're
Yeah,
going down the hallway, and like it's like, oh no, you went down, and
yeah.
I'm gonna take this patch to remember you.
Which, Dave, I have to confess here on your show for the first time, dog tags was right there in our face and we didn't think of it. So We looked into it. It's also like prohibitively expensive to make the cool kind of dog tags we'd want to make, but who knows? Maybe we'll do a season 2. So,
That would be cool,
yeah.
because that would be amazing. I've got a way going in my head of thinking of how you could collect them, how they would take them and put them in the booth
Right?
and whatnot. And
They're
I'm
very
like,
gameable, and yeah, it was just staring us right in the face. So shame on us. Speaking of
oh,
long conversations in RPGs, I see my bud Gina is there in the chat, or was, but yeah, that was that late night conversation for me too, where I was like, holy crap, maybe RPGs is like a thing I could just keep talking about. Where you look up and like 4 hours have passed. So hey Gina, if you're
yeah.
still watching, oh there
So,
she is.
yep. It is like, and I didn't send you any of my talking points or questions. I almost did to see if you wanted to check them out, but you are setting me up like a bowling pin for my questions. And I love it because you brought up
Phew.
Black Friday weekend and you're actually
Yeah.
doing something else that's really cool over Black Friday weekend that I saw Jack mention in the community page on the backer
Yes.
kit, that you are making Void Stream available as an add-on for Black Friday weekend
Yes.
as part of Dog Eat Dog.
Yeah.
And
It's. Go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, what I know what it is, because I was actually going to
Can you
ask you
please
if
tell
there's
me, because I'm not sure anymore.
it is the coolest audio and video supplement for sci horror adventures that you're ever going to
Yeah.
find.
That's
And
that's right, Dave. You're hired.
yeah, all right, I am your new spokesperson.
Cool.
um I was going to ask you, it's kind of funny
Yeah.
that this got brought up because I was going to reach out to you before even talking to you about coming on the show and ask if there was a way to get Void Stream still.
Sure.
And now that I heard this, I'm like, oh no, I'm already broke for Mothership Month and he's going to take more of my money because I've got to go in with the VHS Deluxe because that's the best way to get everything. And I'm a
It's just
completionist.
gorgeous, right? Shout out
Yeah.
to Jack for designing all of that. Like the dude's imagination is bananas. Uh yeah, the so it's funny at the beginning of this, like we one just as we're doing shout outs, Backer Kit themselves have been a dream to work with. So if you're ever considering crowdfunding, they're not paying me to say this. I've just every time the 2 times now that we have interacted with them, night and day between Kickstarter, where you kind of just throw stuff on the internet and hope it catches. Backstarter, I mean Backkit, Backstarter, Backslider. When you announce to Backer Kit that you intend on doing a project, you get an email from a human being the next day who's like, "Hey, what are you doing? How can we help? Here are some suggestions on how to kick things off." And so we were trying to figure out what to add on to Dog Eat Dog to make it more appealing, etc. And we had flirted with Voidstream being reawakened, and I'll talk a little bit more about what Voidstream is in two shakes, but they were like, I mean, let's get Dog Eat Dog across the out there in the ether first, and then on day 2 where it's making $20,000 after a goal of 5K, and we were all like, and then they were like, do it, add it on. And there is a level there of earning backers' trusts, because what we haven't done, Voidstream was only launched in May, I think, March, January, yeah, like May as a backer kit
Yep.
option, and so we haven't delivered on that. And when Sean said, "Hey, would you like to do a backer kit for Mothership Month?" we were like, "Well, we're already in progress. Like we're mid production right now for Voidstream," and he was like, "Honestly, just build on it together, those things, because like." Cameron, I know you're going to deliver on these things. Just make so. Two things have come out of that. During the AP, we actually took extra time on set to make assets that are specific. So within Voidstream, there's a Dog Eat Dog pack of Voidstream flavored stuff that's just coming out with all the other stuff now. Yeah, I'm excited about that. It's all Redfern flavored discoveries you can have in game. And for Black Friday, instead of having to wait for us to go into the pre-sales function for Voidstream on that page, you can now just do it as an add-on starting on Friday through Cyber Monday. If people go nuts, I might just leave that up on there. It really depends on how much the demand is, because one of the number one questions we have for people who have just joined our Discord is, hey, how do I get Voidstream? I missed the mark when it was out there. And this is a great chance to scoop it back up while you're picking up Dog Eat Dog. So you'll be able to get, I think, I'll double check Jack's language on it, but most every physical offer we have on Voidstream out there. So should be cool.
curse you for taking more of my money.
It's not it's
But
yeah,
it's so cool. Like I cannot not
it's
get it.
so
Like
cool. Yeah, we've been
um
the actors we've been working with on both the audio recordings and the videotapes are so incredible, and the designs, because VoidStream comes with its own adventure on the inside. Like it
right.
has its own. It's not as holistic as Dog Eat Dog, which is an entire like campaign setting. But the source of signal, or SOS, is like 2 to 3 night adventure intended to show you how to like work VoidStream into your like workflow, whether it's at your table or your VTT, by modeling different void streams in and of itself, and a haunted radio station. I forgot the word for public access station. So yeah, haunted, take two, haunted radio. No, I said it again. You get the idea. Moving on.
Um so how can the audio and video, you just kind of touched a little bit on how the audio and video assets can be used with
Yes.
VTTs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is there a way for folks to say, I were running a streamed Mothership adventure? Would I be able to
Mhm.
use those in my stream and credit the panic table? Or is that something you haven't really thought of? Or
That's the whole idea, right? Yeah, the it's basically just the Mothership community deserves an excellent caliber of like spooky stuff, because, and I say this, people are already making amazing found footage out there. So what I don't want to do is discourage that. Like honestly, the heart of found footage is having terrible equipment and then doing the damnedest things with it.
yeah.
So that's been a fun quest on our side. But yeah, the whole idea is that when you're at your table, instead of describing a troubling transmission or eerie video or awful audio log that you hear, yeah, you let it rip. And so likewise, we're hoping to make that very useful for streamers as well. And yeah, whether I don't think we're gonna watermark it or have something. If there are watermarks, I want it to be something that like feels diegetic to the piece, so you're not like taken out of
Gotcha.
it by looking at a panic table logo in the corner.
Right.
But yeah, yeah. The goal is to just immerse you even further, and so yeah, would love for streamers to use VoidStream, and I like to think of it as we're still molding, because this is the first journey, the maiden voyage of VoidStream assets, and so when those packs come out, we're trying to figure out if they should be modeled like stock footage, because not every adventure needs a scientist saying something specific, but you do need that like closed like CCTV footage of a scientist making some kind of awful discovery in the lab. And so having a few different options, each of them are only like 30 seconds long, but being like, oh, this one with the glowing light, that one ties into the world I'm already building, so I'll download that version of guy crawling through the vents, kind of a thing. And just making it to where it's
Right.
useful, where it's specific enough to be troubling to your crew while being open-ended enough to kind of fit the adventure you're hoping to build. So
Very cool. And this is another
mm,
thing, when I saw it, I was just like, "Oh my god, I've gotta get this." And I'm so glad I'm gonna be able to. My fiance may, like, take the ruler and wrap me across the knuckles and be like, "No, you're not getting that level. You're getting this
is your
level."
fiance the principal of the Catholic school I went to when I was a boy?
That's funny
Because
because that's where my reference was geared towards, because I remembered when you were talking to, I believe it David Kenny? Is that his name?
yes,
That
yeah,
you were telling him you went to a Catholic middle school, and
yeah.
and that was exactly what drew that reference, was you
I think
having
that's
to
why I love horror now, because I've lived it.
you lived it,
So
yeah.
yeah.
So one of the things I think you do really well with your live streams is setting tension. Um, how do you suggest someone sets tension for their game that's online, to bring that tension, versus how easy, well, I don't want to say easy, but how much easier it is when you're sitting in a dimly lit room around a table versus where someone could be sitting in a well lit room when you're playing on Discord or a VTT?
Right. I love this question. And when I think about setting tension, there is such an imposing bar you can set for yourself as a warden. I find as you're planning your horror game, and it's not limited to Mothership. Like this applies to any role playing game. D&D liminal horror is a new favorite of mine. But you know what, Triangle Agency, as you're setting out to go to Spooky Town, I think there can be a lot of pressure on game masters and wardens to be really reliant on the production value of their table, and setting a tone is great. Like 10 candles relies on the candles and you being in the dark. Playing 10 candles in a brightly lit room, not as fun, but
No.
if you can do the full blown neon lights ambiance, totally great. I have allowed myself to step into the trap of being more preoccupied with my soundboard working than telling a good story in the past, which is one thing that, like, your players don't necessarily remember the cool sound effects the way they remember how they felt as you describe, or perhaps most importantly, fail to describe the thing that they behold on the other side of a darkened doorway. So what I've learned in my brief time running horror games is less, and this is a cliche, but it's so true, is truly more. So especially in games that involve mystery, like Mothership is very, you have to survive the mystery. I mean, survive the encounter, solve the mystery, or save the people who
Right.
are or items, and you kind of have to pick one of those things. But you know, any of those other games I listed, Call of Cthulhu is very mystery based. All of these things, you can't. The tension cannot rely on the mechanics. It has to rely on the anticipation. I'm picturing immediately that Tim Curry meme from Rocky Horror, the anticipation
Oh,
of, yeah. But yeah, it's really important to say very little, and that way, because your players are always going to step into the room expecting you to be scary, and it's sort of like expecting people to like be funny. It's hard to deliver on immediately, but when you don't say anything, there might, so you know it's the spider people from Mars insofar as your adventure is going, but they don't know what they're walking into. So
right.
anytime you even leave a clue, a dead body, a horrifying void stream message that you play, their minds are painting the worst things they can imagine in every direction, and they are trusting you to scare the pants off of them. And so much of the terror comes from silence, from being what's the word I would say? Withholding.
Yep.
And lastly, yeah, describe things plainly, simply, and don't try to scare them. Just give them too little information, and lead with information you wouldn't think to talk about. How things smell, how the air tastes, a song suddenly that the moment reminds one of the characters of, and not, so yeah, you're basically looking at like a slender man, and you gotta trust me, his mouth opens too wide, and he's very scary, so he's gonna do 2d10 damage to you. Not terrifying. But when you walk into a room and implacably the android, who does not have a true sense of smell, suddenly believes it can smell saffron, and doesn't know if it wants to tell the rest of the crew, and hears a light lullaby. What is happening
Yeah.
there? Then you see something move that is the Slender Man with the 2d10 damage. Totally fine, but they don't need to know that. That's the horror.
Right. All right. That is some perfect advice. Um, One of the last things I wanted to ask you, that is both for myself and anyone watching out there that may be where I was 3 years ago and wanting to get into live streaming with high production value. How should you go about getting started and trying to build that production value? I mean, in your case, you already
Right.
had Failure Island,
Yeah.
but getting that started, I guess, would be like, how can you get that production house going on kind of a shoestring budget, I guess you would say.
Right. This is a great question, and probably like the number one thing that we're asked by other people who want to get into making actual plays. And I think it's so important to start. That's the main thing. I see a lot of
Right.
people getting ready to just jump, and so yeah. First and most importantly, like, you can have all the bells and whistles in the world. We've seen great shows where either the pacing sucks, or the story's not engaging, or the like chemistry between the people at the table is really forced. So yeah, I would say first and foremost, tell a great story and record that with your phone. I would say the next leg up from that is surprisingly, cameras may seem overwhelming, and networking them in a way that you can get that sort of Dimension 20 or Critical Role look seems daunting. Audio is so much more important. So much more important at first, I would say, because like it's okay if the image is grainy, it is not acceptable if you can't really understand anybody. So, I would say first things first. And this is solved easily. Again, like they have like the little like TikTok labs or whatever. There's affordable options out there for simple microphones that'll just start to step up that quality. One thing, I don't want to get too granular, but the first lesson and perhaps the first horror I found of live video production, well, we don't do live, but I mean, as far as like recording a live moment and then editing that down to, because I don't want to watch other people, and this is not to bash them because it is a $7 million a year market and growing for Critical Role alone. But the 4 hour live streams, uninterrupted, uncut, that is a choice. I don't have that much time, so we aim to do those like 60 to 90 minute episodes.
Right.
But as you are editing to get granular, it's called checkerboarding. At least that's what Many Sided Media, who does My First Dungeon and Talk of the Table and a few other awesome podcasts out there, calls it. We're stepping into the podcast world with our productions soon, but going into the audio and separating everybody's mics individually so that you get that clean take and don't have just like dead air hanging under people's stuff is a super duper tedious, absolutely necessary step for editing, I'd say, your VODs, because it comes across better. So there's a bunch of options out there. I recommend, just it's easy, Dave. Just have a production company already. It's that easy.
God,
just go ahead and
I'm just going to go start one, and I'm going to come down to Brooklyn and hire you. And
that's all. Yeah,
it's all you got to do.
But I see people doing great things. Like Riverside is a really sane way to record multiple inputs simultaneously, and I see APs using that across the board. There are nifty gadgets out there that I haven't researched in a robust manner. In fact, I recommended this on Reddit, and I haven't even checked it with my like technical director or partner Jacob, who would be like, Cameron, that's a 5-year-old solution. But for about 10 minutes, early on when we were doing live events, there's this incredible gadget called Sling Studio, where what's magical about it is that you can network DSLRs, video cameras, phones, other gadgets all together and have a multicam editing setup in your space. And it's, compared to a lot of other stuff out there, really affordable. You're still looking at like a several $100s, but not several thousand.
Right.
And so I think that's a really, if you're starting to be serious, I'm sure there are other like apps and options out there. It's really a question of stability and whether or not you're like willing to link cameras and stuff together. But yeah, before cameras, worry about sound. I think that's so huge because, yeah, again, we're willing to tolerate just okay image. If it sounds bad, I skip. I'm done listening.
Yep,
So,
I'm the same way. It's like if you're hearing like me try to talk to you and it's like this, then you don't want to watch
I don't want to listen. Yeah.
Yep. Well, the last thing I have is I want to basically hand the closing minutes over to you and let you tell folks where they can find the Panic Table, your work,
sure.
and your live streams and everything else related to this backer kit, void stream, and all of that.
Oh, that's very generous. Thank you, Dave. The Panic Table can be found. So, first of all, www.thepanictable.com. If you go there right now, it is a dead website that hasn't been updated since February. That is about to change as we make that more of a hub for all of these things. So I promise in a couple weeks that'll be a very useful place to visit for all things Panic Table, for seeing where you can like lock down new projects or pick up merch that's been dropped in the past. So that'll be up and running, and it is now, but looks like we forgot about it, and it's because we did. But in the meantime, you can watch the entire 10-episode run of Unaccompanied Minors, our Mothership extravaganza, on. I was hearing this noise, and then I forgot that my puppy dog, Detective Remington, is burrowing right next to me into the floor. It really scared me because I thought I was here alone. But yeah, so the Panic Table on YouTube, and that's where we'll be dropping Dog Eat Dog. We're going to have at least episode 1 out by the end of Mothership Month, in addition to all the other programming we're doing for it. And then we'll be dropping that on a monthly basis. You will soon see all of these things wherever podcasts are available, because we're going to take those and transpose them into Spotify, Apple Music, etc. Again, you can find that at the Panic Table. And then lastly, check out BackerKit while you got the time. I think you have, what, like 12 days, 13 days, maybe a little more on Mothership Month.
Yeah, 15, I think, actually. Right?
Oh,
no,
hey,
wait,
I'll
there's
take that.
30, so
15
15.
days. Yeah, there, and like, absolutely. Has there been puppers and no sign of them on camera? Adam Hargrave says in the chat. And I mean, yeah, here, let me. I did a dog module. Come here, Ram. Hey, how about it? Let me. Oh,
yeah, pets are always welcome on my channel. So, because, like, oh my goodness, what a good boy!
This is the goodest boy, Detective Remington.
Oh my goodness.
There you go, Adam. That's just for you. If you like this dog, then you might like our module, Dog Eat Dog, on the backer kit. So check that out. And a whole universe of other really awesome Mothership modules out there. I am so excited about a dozen of them, and that's just because I haven't had time to read in depth the other 8, but there's super duper cool stuff happening there. So check us out on BackerKit. Please spend way too much money on us and buy them as gifts for your friends.
See, it's perfect. Adam says, and I handed you a segue. Well, we still have a couple minutes left if you've got time to stick around for a few more minutes.
Hey, yeah.
No All right. And I kind of just drew a blank there with what I was going to say. I told you about the mail call I got the other day, because I kind of went...
Oh, that's right.
I went a little overboard on spending money. Which has come back to bite me in the tuchus a little bit. I know what I wanted to bring up. PAX. I'm so bummed. I can't go. I was going to go. I have my badge. I know. I have my badge. I can't go just because of finances.
Sure.
One of the things that I've done this year is start up, like really put more of an emphasis on getting stuff for the channel, like lights, better mic, camera, stuff like that. But I've also branched out into reopening my 3D print business, and which is something I kind of discussed with you the other day, asking if you were using miniatures. And the startup cost for that has just been crazy. And
that's what I hear.
And yeah, so I won't get to see you at PAX, and I'm like super bummed. So hopefully next year you'll be at PAX.
Yeah, if any of you out there watching this are hanging out at PAX, I'm super easy to spot at a distance. I'm very bald too. So if you see me on the floor, come up and say what's up. We might be sneaking some fun like Panic Table like stickers and merch into PAX that we'll just be handing out, me and Dungeon Club. So if you spot us, come say hi. We'd love to talk.
I'm going to pop a couple things up on the screen here.
Sure.
Gina said different dog vibes than the detective, though. And
the detective's a good boy.
And then Adam said 3D printing not cheap at first, but hella fun, and he is absolutely right. The stuff I've gotten to print for, like, when I ever do get a table back assembled, is going to make them be like, whoa. Except for I'm not good at painting, so.
Me neither, brother.
You know, it's like I could basically just take like a mini and dip it into paint and pull it out, and it would probably look better than me painting it. Adam may argue. Adam is actually in one of my gaming groups that I play with online. So thanks for tuning in, Adam. And yeah, I didn't know if there was
Here's my show pitch for you, Dave.
Yeah.
I think there should be a segment where it's people painting minis poorly and having a conversation. So like the focus is not the painting, it's that it's happening, and then you like maybe you have one person who's incredible at it and then several people who are just terrible, and all of you are making conversation and then just weighing in how your orc looks at the end of it.
It is funny that you say that, because I have a segment that I started. I had Stefan Picorni on, that owns Dwarven Forge. And we did paint and talk with Dave. That was my first segment of it. I had ordered one of his pieces. He painted the same piece. And to look at mine in comparison to his was like looking at a kindergartner drawing versus like Pablo Picasso,
Yeah,
and it was just like, oh my God. So that is something I have on the radar. I've got a bunch of segments that I want to get going here. So I've just got
super
to
fun.
find the time. But
Yeah,
the
that's the
last thing
real
I'd like to
trick.
do in the last couple minutes that we have here, if anyone has any questions for Cameron or wants to ask me anything, throw them up there and we'll see if we can get some answers for you. I always forget to
Mm,
do that. I always
the
forget to
sweet
do
nectar of answers. Yeah, Gino, what do you want to know?
that. Adam, you've got to have a burning question. Oh, let's see. Adam actually said, there is a painting method based on dipping. Interesting. It must be called the Dave method
Yeah,
because
I think we all knew that one. Classic Dave method.
that's right. It's a Dave thing. Uh, and Adam says, no, I'll go easy on you folks. All right.
Thanks,
Well,
Adam.
Cameron, thank you so much for coming on today. I have had so much fun talking to you. I'd love to have you back on for your next project, whatever it may be,
Sure.
and talk about it. And folks, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up. Maybe think of subscribing to the channel. Head over and find the Panic Table, subscribe there, give them some thumbs up on stuff because they're doing some awesome work. And other than that, tune back in tonight at 8 o'clock. I'm going to be interviewing Matthew Funk about some of his Dungeon Crawl Classics products that he's got coming up and going on. And other than that, folks, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Cameron.
All right.